welcome to week 2 of I'm a Big Kid Now. Hopefully you're mastering your pull-ups. Hasn't been too messy a week in the interim, but we're charging through the idea of growing up and being intentional about growing rather than just seeing how it all works out.
Yeah, saying we don't want to live in nappies for the rest of our life. We actually want to graduate.
Let's agree, we don't want to live in nappies for the rest of our life.
Yeah, and we want to deal with our own mess.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've got enough going on in my life. I find it difficult to manage other people's lives.
Yeah, I find it impossible to manage other people's lives. You know, the reality is we've got our own life to manage.
Yeah.
And everyone's got to take some responsibility, I guess, in life. Yeah.
And God's given us each the power to determine.
Yeah.
And authority, the ability to author our world. And this is what this series is all about, us growing up, taking responsibility in our life, adulting.
Yeah. Well, last week we said we don't want to be little people in a big people's world.
Yeah.
We don't want to always be deferring to whoever's in charge.
Yeah.
You know?
We've got to come out of those one up, one down relationships, which we defined last week.
Yeah. Exactly. And one of the things I reckon is interesting is how we respond to other people's opinions of us.
Yeah.
You know, and a really interesting thought is like if someone pays you a compliment, maybe they really encourage you.
I like compliments.
I imagine that'd be great as well.
Yeah. Oh, you're really awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Oh.
Yeah. The reality is, when someone compliments you, you feel good for like
15 seconds.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Longer. It doesn't really.
Maybe longer.
Maybe longer. You know, it depends who it is. Maybe whatever. But it makes a sort of a pretty shallow impact.
Yeah. Well, today we live in a world that is always fishing for compliments.
Yeah, or likes.
Yeah, likes. Yeah. And sometimes it's not just the amount of likes, but we're after somebody, that one special person liking us. Or liking a post.
Yeah, or liking that post. Yeah. And so you have to adjust. Obviously, you have to filter the image you put out.
Yeah.
To get the compliments that you're after, getting the likes that you're after. But then they don't really help that much.
Yeah, because in life we've got two selves. We've got our real self. And our projected self.
Yeah, the way we present ourselves.
Yeah.
Our curated version.
Yeah. And a lot of what other people say is our projected selves, what we want people to think of us.
Yeah.
But our real self sometimes gets left in the back corner, and it's unaddressed.
Yeah.
But we want to challenge you to say that we don't really grow unless we bring our real selves to the table.
Yeah. It's only the real you that will grow. We don't want to just grow our image of ourselves, or we don't want to just grow our Facebook presence. We actually want to grow and develop as human beings, as the people that we are. Yeah.
And that's the danger in a group. Sometimes we sometimes don't get past the projected self.
Yeah.
To a place where we're really open.
Yeah. Which in a group actually a space where you can, isn't it? Yeah. Over time, you know, the trust builds up in the group. We treat each other right, and then we can actually start to engage with real people. You know.
Well, one other comforting thought that I've found over the years is I'm not the only one going through this.
Yeah.
What you're going through right now, I guarantee there's at least 80% of the room going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Or who have been through it and found answers.
Yeah. Or who are about to go through it.
Yeah.
That would be 100% of the people in the room. Yeah. So a compliment lasts 15 seconds. That's the official, Sam's done a lot of research, 15 seconds. But if someone criticizes you, especially if it's that special person, you know, or that particular group, the cool kids, like that criticism, same thing, one sentence, one thought.
Well, a criticism, you know, can be just a bypassing comment from that person, but it can stay with us.
Yeah.
So much so that we are up at night still meditating over those few words.
Yeah.
We wake up in the morning angry.
It's funny, you can remember some criticisms even years later.
Yeah.
You know, you remember how it felt, and you remember, you know, someone said something, you know, particularly if it's public, and it just sort of cuts right into who we are.
And it has power over you.
Yeah.
So adulting is learning to take power and authority in your own life. And so, you know, the whole people pleasing is big because, you know, when you're stuck in a place where you're trying to please people, you can't take charge over your own life.
Yeah. Exactly. If everyone else is the big people and you're the small person auditioning, you know, then you're not in charge of what's going on. You're stuck, you know.
Stuck. And Jesus addressed this many times throughout the Bible. You know, just with the Pharisees, a number of different people who are just all about projection rather than authentic self.
Yeah. Well, Jesus said there's actually I'm reading it, so I got the iPad because it's a really interesting little interaction. He just says,
John 12.
Yeah. I actually can read. That's John 12, 42 to 43. So have a look at it in your discussions. It says, at the same time, many, even among the leaders, believed in Jesus, right? So Jesus is doing his thing. And then lots of the actual religious leaders of the day believed in him. But then it says this, but because of the Pharisees, so the cool kids, they wouldn't openly acknowledge their faith for fear that they would be put out of the synagogue, which again, that's the cool kid club, right? For they loved human praise more than praise from God.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really big thought in just a couple of verses.
It's a real big thought, that whole thing of they wouldn't openly acknowledge their faith. They had a belief.
Well, they had faith.
Yeah.
It was real. They really had faith in Jesus.
But they wouldn't openly acknowledge it because they feared what other people would think.
Yeah. So they didn't exercise their faith because it was approval from others was more important to them than approval from the creator of the entire universe.
Where do you keep your faith a secret? Simply because you're worried what other people will think and how they will respond. And how often do we withdraw and not say anything and not be true to ourselves simply because we're looking for approval from people rather than approval from God? This is totally different to how Jesus operated.
Yeah, Jesus is interesting. So I think the next one what you look at is Luke 6:26, is that it?
Yeah, well, Luke 6:26 says, woe to you when everybody thinks well of you.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah. So we're not to live in a place where we're pleasing everyone. You can't please everyone. It's impossible.
And if you are pleasing everyone, then you're probably doing a dance. Hey, you're saying this thing to that one. You're saying this one to that one.
You're probably people pleasing.
Yeah.
But in Mark chapter 12, this is how Jesus operated.
Yeah. So he says this. He says that they came to Jesus. They said, "Teacher, we know that you're a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth."
Yeah. So Jesus spoke the truth, and he left people to decide how they would respond to it.
Yeah.
Jesus was never trying to win over the crowd, but because truth is truth, it will naturally win over people.
Yeah.
But that wasn't his intention.
Yeah. So Jesus had, like you said, the passage says he has integrity.
Yeah.
So he's got a simple, unified internal world because he's not worried about everybody else.
Yeah.
He knows what he believes. He knows who he is as well.
I like what Joyce Meyer says. She says, if you try and please people, you'll never please God.
Yeah.
But if you please God, you will always, in the end, please people.
But not all of them.
In the end.
In the end, you'll be the person that you're supposed to be. Yeah, totally. And I think it comes to this whole the idea of character versus reputation.
Yeah.
So Jesus had a reputation, a miracle worker, he was famous. But that passage there, they weren't talking about his reputation. They say you're a person of integrity.
Yeah. So character is who you really are.
Yeah.
Reputation is what others think of you.
Yeah.
Now, as a great expression goes, if you take care of your character, your reputation will take care of itself.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good.
But how often do we work on our reputation?
And sometimes we're working on our reputation, and it's actually at the expense of our character, because we're trying to get in with that group. Even real, it happens really subtly. I don't think most of the time we're not aware of it sometimes. Yeah. Just change it. One of the things I do all the time, if I'm visiting a foreign country, I'll speak in the accent of that country. Wow. It's embarrassing. It's deeply embarrassing, right? But I think it's because as human beings, we have this natural tendency to always want to relate. Yeah. And that can be exaggerated to the point where we're always ending up reflecting the environment that we're in. Yeah. When I was at high school, I talked like everyone else at high school. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Even though that wasn't how I talked at home, it wasn't how I was brought up. But you use the same language as the people around you because we want to relate, We
want to relate, we want to be accepted. But here's the thing with adults or adulting is we don't need permission from anyone else.
Yeah, and it's not about our reputation.
It's not about.
It's about who we really, really are.
And God's put us in charge. Yeah. Now the whole thing of God being in charge, isn't it interesting? We often will go through life, and when we hit a crisis, we go, "Here, God. Yeah. I've done everything that I can. I've come to my end. You take control over my life." Yeah.
So when it's a mess, we're like, "Here, God. Have the mess.
Have the mess." Yeah. Yeah. But what about when you know what you're doing? Yeah. When you got it sorted out. Because this whole thing of spiritual maturity, it's like God gives us the power to determine,
Yeah.
but then He wants us to make a choice
Yeah.
with the authority we've got.
Yeah.
You know, are we still going to submit to God the same way?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, are we going to submit to God even if though we think we've got it all together, we've got it all going on?
Yeah. Are we going to give Him the places in our life where we're doing okay? We think we've got it sorted.
Yeah.
Again, what you know can help you, but what you think you know
Yeah.
can hurt you.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. We've got a list of things. We're going to run through this list of things, and it's just a bunch of ideas, list of ideas, and the idea is just have a listen to them. We've got they're probably in the study guide as well, but these are just to help you figure out whether you're, areas of life where or you're pleasing other people rather than actually really finding out who you are. And so sometimes we believe that we're bad if they don't approve.
Yeah, or I'm less than others.
Yeah, or sometimes we think we have to please others if they're going to like us.
Or I'm bad if they disagree.
Yeah, if they disagree, then I must be bad. Yeah. Sometimes we think our opinions aren't as good as other people's opinions.
Yeah. Or we're always looking for permission from others.
Yeah. And what about if you fail? When you fail, if you think you're bad because you failed, then that's a people-pleasing thing.
Yeah. Failure is an event, not a person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just even around our own sexuality, I shouldn't feel sexual, but that's how God's made us. Or, these things are bad.
Yeah, there's definitely sometimes our sexuality and the way we feel about it is really dominated by other people's opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the whole underlying thought that my plans won't succeed. Others do, but mine won't.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we find ourselves deferring our beliefs, even if we disagree, we'll just agree with people in a conversation.
Keep the peace.
Just to keep the peace. We actually disagree, but we believe their beliefs, or we say we agree. Yeah.
Or we want someone else to manage our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Or because we think we're not capable. Grown-ups are capable, but we're a small person, so we need someone else to manage. Yeah.
Yeah. Or if I differ, I must be wrong.
Yeah.
Which is a big one.
And a big lie, I think a lot of people believe this. I see it in my own thinking as well. So this idea of adulthood, of being the author of my life, authority, is actually something that's out of my grasp.
Here's what I want to declare to you right now. If you're over the age of 16, you're an adult.
You are.
You're not a child.
Yeah.
You have the power to determine. It's not this place that you're suddenly going to arrive at. You're an adult right now, and God's given you authority over your life.
Yeah.
And we want you to ask the question, where do you need to take authority over your life rather than listening to the opinions of others? Where have you listened to the opinions of others? Where do you defer to somebody else? I pray this series is a blessing, and we've got more coming.
Yeah, we have.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be good. And so we'll see you next week. Make sure you're in the e-group, and we'll get on to the next topic, talking about growing up, becoming a big kid.
Yeah. See you.